keep that wonderful applaud going for Rati Gupta. Come on.
So technically, I'm Indian. Like, I've got the genes and the blood and the pushy parents and all that stuff. But I've never really been good at being Indian. Like, all the Indian girls that I grew up with went to Bharatanatyam classes. I went to ballet. They all kept their hair long and straight. I chopped mine short and got a perm. They all wanted to be doctors. I wanted to be a doctor, but I really wanted to be a backup dancer for Janet Jackson. So I pretty much spent high school like hanging out with white people and doing white people stuff, like playing golf and eating rice-a-roni every night for dinner. But then I went, you know you eat it. But then I went to college in Chicago, where I actually met some Indians that I felt like I could relate to. There was Farah, this fresh off the boat Muslim chick who was also a drunken floozy. Shaylee was like your typical science nerd, but by the weekend she would turn into a pot-smoking hipster. And then there was Neil, this Indian guy that I had a huge crush on because he was Indian, but not too Indian. So I figured he'd be like the perfect compromise if my parents ever wanted to arrange my marriage. So I kind of ended up like hanging out with them quite a bit. And now at the end of my freshman year, there was this like huge ass, like all Indian rager going down at the University of Illinois. And they all wanted to go. So at first I like hesitated because I was like, I don't know, this is like way too brown for my blood. But then I thought like, maybe I should go. Like maybe this is my chance to like be a good Indian and like get drunk with a bunch of other Indians. So I borrowed my cousin's Jeep because it was a 3-hour drive away. And I borrowed her fake ID because it was at a nightclub. And then me and my friends road trip down to U of I. Now, people weren't kidding when they called this thing a rager. Like, never have I seen so many Indians jammed into such a confined space. And like, I've been to India. So, like, I mean it when I say, like, this was really crowded. So we ended up just getting, like, super shit-faced at the club, and then, like, we went back to the hotel and, like, kept drinking until, like, 4 a.m. when we finally passed out. Now, the next morning, I had mandatory rehearsal with the dance company I was in at 10 a.m. So I made everyone wake up at the butt crack of dawn so that I could get back up in time. So we pile into the Jeep, I book it down the highway, and somewhere between Podunk and Hicktown, Illinois, I get pulled over. Now, this was not the first time I'd ever been pulled over for speeding, so I knew what to do, and I was pretty calm, but when I opened up my wallet to get my driver's license out, my fake ID was still, like, in, like, the clear main pocket, so I had to reach across and get, like, my real ID from my side pocket, and when the cop saw me do that, he goes, "What was that ID?" So then I launch into this elaborate story about how my cousin gave me her ID in case I needed to prove that I knew the owner of the car, and none of it made sense. So then the cop asked me if I had been drinking, and I said no, because it had been like 3.5 hours. But he didn't buy it, so he pulls me out of the Jeep, sits me in the passenger seat of his car, and gives me a breathalyzer test. Now, like I said, it had only been 3.5 hours since I stopped drinking, so I blew above a 0, but I still blew below the legal limit, but it didn't matter because I was underage. 0 tolerance, automatic DUI. So at this point, I'm just like bawling. Like I'm sitting in a cop car, I have no idea what's gonna happen to me. The cop is still like rifling through my wallet for some reason, and when he finds my student ID, he goes, "What are you studying at Northwestern?" And I'm like, "I'm pre-med!" And he goes, "Well, how do you expect to get into medical school with a felony on your record?" Apparently, possession of a fake ID is a felony. So he pulls me out of the cop car, turns me around, and slaps handcuffs on my wrists. He drives me to headquarters. He takes my fingerprints. He puts me in an interrogation room where he continues to interrogate me and like grill me about this fake ID. He's all like, where did you get it? How long have you had it? Are you aware that fake IDs like this are what the bombers from 9/11 had? And in my head, I'm just like, I'm sorry, I just wanted to get drunk with a bunch of brown people and like maybe hook up with Neil finally. But no matter how much I like begged and pleaded with this cop, he like didn't give a shit. So eventually he like leaves me alone, and I'm just sitting in the room, and I'm just like crying and like waiting for jail. And he finally comes back in, and he gives me a lecture about underage drinking, and he lets me go. No DUI, no felony. I mean, I still got a speeding ticket, but other than that, I was totally free. So I find my friends in the Jeep outside, and we go back up to school, and I finally make it to my rehearsal, and when I tell the mostly white dance company what had happened, the general consensus from all of them was that the cop was racist. Now, until they said it, it hadn't like occurred to me that I had been racially profiled, but I totally had been. So clearly, I was getting better at this whole Indian thing. Thank you.
Rati Gupta. Very nice. This is my favorite part about Rati is the policeman took her to headquarters.